Good.
Hey, Colin.
Hey.
How's it going? It's been a while.
You know, it's going all right. Fridays are not my normal day. Thursday nights are RuPaul's Drag Race. You
watch
can
that
sort
at
of
my
do
house,
some
too.
math
Yeah.
about like where I'm at this
So
morning.
you're super hungover and kind of sad.
That's
Actually, I didn't watch last night's episode.
I'm not
so
sad.
I know.
I'm
Okay.
not
All
sad.
right.
No. But you got the first half right.
Fair enough. Yes. Well, we'll have to talk about that later because I can't talk about it without doing any spoilers. I was going
so
to say
thoughtful.
it was so light out this morning. I almost thought that I was late to the studio.
Oh yeah.
Because it's spring and the days are getting longer and the sun is coming out earlier and life is
Imagine
getting
that, right?
warmer and
Like,
warmer.
Better and better, really.
Yeah.
Like if we're being honest.
Baby bunnies are bouncing everywhere. And
I mean, there was a whole herd of
spring is
them in
the
front
air.
of my apartment this
Was
morning.
there?
Absolutely.
It's really. What would you do? You'd be like,
Birds
"What is
chirping in the air.
Well, spring is lovely, and news is less lovely. But we
I
got
was
to
just
talk
going to say,
about
it's not as lovely for Julian.
not as lovely.
Julian's having a rough spring.
Yeah, truth.
Tell us more.
Well, excuse me, I cannot make words today. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has been arrested in London. Assange was arrested Thursday after the Ecuadorian embassy suddenly revoked his 7-year asylum. He was taken into custody by British police and will likely face extradition to the United States. Supporters say Assange is a free speech hero who has exposed abusers of power committed by Western states. Others say he is dangerous and has undercut American security. His organization, WikiLeaks, first came into fame in 2010 when it published video of soldiers killing dozens from a U.S. military helicopter. WikiLeaks would go on to publish countless diplomatic cables, classified documents, and later hacked Democratic National Committee emails. Assange has been holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy since 2012. It was not immediately clear why Ecuador ended his asylum status, but relations between Assange and the embassy have soured in recent years. The U.S. has charged Assange with conspiring to hack into a Pentagon computer network. This indictment was revealed shortly after his arrest, and he faces a maximum of 5 years if convicted. Now, the rumor that I heard is that they have an agreement not to extradite Assange anywhere where they have the death penalty, and that includes here.
I've heard that before. My understanding was that was Russia that was refusing to... Wasn't Assange briefly in Russia?
Oh, Lordy, I don't know.
Yeah, I think sometime back he might have been seeking sort of, I guess we'll call it asylum there.
Yeah.
And I believe Russia was the one that said they wouldn't, which was sort of a pretense, if I recall. Like it was just sort of an excuse not to...
Fingers crossed behind their back. They're like, we promise not to send you anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny because as you were going through this, it starts to sound like a house guest that has overstayed their welcome, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm picturing someone for 7 years in an embassy, and like embassies are big, but they're not that big.
They're like, we only have so many Andes mints. You've
yeah,
cleaned us out.
Exactly. I'm like, how big could the Ecuadorian embassy in London be?
Yeah.
Like, and this guy's hanging out for 7 years. Yeah,
I
I'd
was
get
trying to
annoyed
understand,
eventually
was he
too.
literally inside the building for 7 years?
It's a fair question. I would assume so.
That seems horrible.
Well, because the whole premise, right, is that like British police can't go into an embassy, physically can't go into an embassy.
Right. Jamie says he can go on the balcony.
Oh, okay.
I can't tell if that's a joke or not.
I don't. Yeah.
If it's a joke, it's not very funny. If it's his real life, it's really, really not funny.
Yeah. No, I really think it's not a joke.
Yeah, you physically cannot go outdoors just to stay in the embassy or on a patio.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I have such mixed feelings about Julian Assange. I mean, on the one hand, yes, there needs to be freedom of communication, and I totally understand why people who back him. On the other hand, there has to be some boundaries. You know what I mean? Because not all humans are trustworthy, and not all humans should be trusted with sensitive information.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
I think with this sort of stuff, it's funny because I was just telling you that I could conjure an opinion on just about anything. and this is one where actually, like, my opinion really boils down to, like, he did something he knew was illegal.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to face the consequences for
Sure.
that being illegal. And sort of if he's going to sort of maintain this civil disobedience freedom fighter sort of stance, the reality is that part of civil disobedience is that you endure the consequences for it. Right? Like
Right.
the whole civil rights movement was like, they're going to go to jail, they're going to serve out their time. Right? Like
That's a good point.
When you do something that you know is absolutely illegal, like there's going to be consequences for it. And I think that's sort of where I end up falling, is like I don't have a super intense moral judgment about his choices. Like I'm neither freedom fighter nor like I'm not in the freedom fighter camp. I'm not really in the terrorist camp. Like I'm kind of like, this is what happens.
I think
also 5 years seems shockingly little. I was really, for all the hassle and noise that it's been, 5 years seems like a very short term.
Yeah, I agree. I would argue that anybody, I think we have to be really careful not to place people like Julian Assange and other people who, you know, they call themselves freedom fighters or whatever. I mean, there's always a little bit of good and a little bit of bad in everybody. And somebody needs, I mean, like the idea of like, I'm going to take on the government and the government's keeping information from us and like somebody has to do it. I mean, he has a point, but like, because there is no, you can't say that like any one person is the ultimate authority, right? Like this is the person that gets, I mean, I guess we have in that we've elected a government and you know, whatever, but sort of from a aliens looking down on human beings sort of standpoint. So I think it's a little dangerous to put him either in the category of like, he's doing this for good or like he is the ultimate evil. I mean, he's just a human doing what humans do. Yeah. And we're constantly just trying to circle each other. It really worries me when anybody falls into that thought camp of like, this is a terrorist. Like, no, human beings are just human beings. Like, calm down.
The funny part, though, is like, I think he would put himself in one of those camps very squarely, right? Like, I don't think he, at least from public commentary, does not appreciate the ambiguity of what he's done. Like, he's very like, no, this is like a moral mission.
Really? I didn't know that.
And I feel like when you hear him talk about it, right, like he sees, at least everything I've seen or read from him is there's sort of no indication that he thinks there might be some sort of problem with what he's done. Like he's very like he feels very in the right. Well,
I suppose you would have to, right? And especially if you, like when your life has become completely about this thing that you've done.
Absolutely.
And then, you know, these documents that you've leaked, it's like, I would assume that psychologically you would have to try to convince both people outside of yourself and yourself. Like, nope, this was absolutely the right thing to do. No ambiguity, because otherwise you would drive yourself crazy. Oh, yeah. And you would lay in bed at night and be like, am I running? Do I live in the Ecuadorian embassy for no reason? You know, like, did I dig myself a hole?
Because I think the notable part, right, is that it wasn't like a one-time thing. Like, it's not like he once leaked something. Because that was the, like, one item, but appreciates that leaking is maybe potentially a problem in the aggregate. This was like his career, right? He built a whole institution around this. And so, of course, he totally sees it as the absolute unquestionable right thing to do. And I think that's the hard part, exactly what you said, right? Which is that something like this, like, there's a fair amount of discernment sort of in like, okay, leaking, for instance, the diplomatic cables, probably good, right? Like sort of the net effect of that was for the best. Hacking one party and leaking their emails, that starts to look really political. And so you start to, as it builds up, you start to, it gets,
and that's where I can start to understand the argument of like, that's why we shouldn't allow people to just randomly leak documents, because then we're leaving the decision of what documents get leaked.
It's a free-for-all.
Yeah, up to this one person and who,
Absolutely.
Oh, man, politics. Sam, glad I am not in charge of politics at all.
Yeah,
really,
you're like, any of that. That whole thing.
I'm glad. Isn't it funny? I don't know about you, but like when I was younger, I definitely thought that I would go into politics. I actually, my first foray into college was musical theater. And then I was like, well, that's not going to get me anywhere. So then it was political science. And about after maybe a year and a half, 2 years in political science, I was like, oh, I don't want to do this at all. You think you're going to change the world. And then you're like, oh no, that's just like beating your head against a brick wall trying to like change people's minds, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So instead I went into radio.
Oh, there you go.
You know, we're just about a minute away. I think we're going to go to Talk Media News in just a second. But I think real quick, let's take a musical break. Hopefully we've got some more surf music for you.
Fingers crossed.
Happy April. Hang 10, y'all. This is X-Ray in the Morning. We'll be right back.